The Where Our Minds Wander podcast may contain sensitive content and explicit language. Listener discretion is advised. Greetings, fellow wanderers, to the places our minds wander.
The house at the end of the dirt road, where disembodied voices whisper and strange sounds make the living shiver.
Where shadows lurk at the edge of the woods, just outside your back door. And mysterious lights speed beyond reason across the clear night sky.
Odd events throughout time that lead you down the rabbit hole.
I'm Wes.
And I'm Beth.
And this is Where Our Minds Wander. Hello and welcome to Where Our Minds Wander, all you fellow wanderers. Thank you for joining us.
Hello, everybody. Another week has flown by, and here we are again, ready to bring you two new stories for tonight's episode.
Yeah, they're kind of similar in that they both seem to have logical explanations. But then there's some element that still makes you wonder and kind of take notice.
Yeah, and speaking of noticing, you all may have noticed that we changed our website a little bit. We're hoping that the new format makes it easier to download our latest episodes. But all of our other stuff is still there. The links to our books and to our TeePublic store. Plus, you can still email us through the website, and you could rate the show.
Yeah, that you can. And while you're there browsing our website, if there's any topic that you would like us to cover in a future episode, go ahead and shoot us an email. We're always open to new topics.
Yes, we'd love some new suggestions.
All right, Beth, is there anything else that you can think of before we need to get into tonight's episode?
No, I think that about covers it. I'm ready to get started. And I actually have another question for all of you tonight. If people in Tazewell County, Illinois, are still reporting Bigfoot sightings 40 years after an alleged hoax, does that mean anything? Well, for us, it means we have some questions. Like, do all the people who have reported this Bigfoot since 1972 even know about the alleged hoax 40 years ago? Or are they really seeing something? And what about the 200 people who claimed to see Bigfoot immediately after the first report in 1972? Were they all operating out of mass hysteria? Or did they really see something too? I guess it all boils down to one question. What did one young man really see in July of 1972 on Coal Hollow Road in East Peoria, Illinois?
I have no idea, but I bet you're going to tell us all.
Well, I hope so, because that would be really crappy if I didn't.
Yeah, that's it, folks.
What we know about that day, sorry, I couldn't remember if it was a night or day. What we know about that day is this. In early May of 1972, an 18-year-old named Randy Emmert and some of his friends claimed they saw what could only be a Bigfoot in the woods near Coal Hollow Road. They believed it was taking shelter underneath an abandoned house, since they claimed they had seen huge footprints circling around it. According to a Pekin Daily Times article published in July of 1972, Emmert described the bipedal hairy creature as 8 to 12 feet tall. It was a whitish color. It moved very quickly and smelled like sulfur mixed with wet dog, and it let out a horrible screech, quote, like a steam engine whistle, but more human, end quote. Nicknamed Kohomo because a similar creature had been spotted in Missouri recently, Momo, the Missouri Monster, the creature was terrifying to both local wildlife and residents. Emmert claimed he saw it twice before telling anyone because he didn't want people to think he was crazy. By July of 1972, it seemed as if everyone had a story to tell about seeing Kohomo. People were corroborating Emmert's story left and right. On July 25th, the Peoria Journal-Star reported that people were even seeing it swimming in the Illinois River in the neighboring town of Creve Coeur. Locals undoubtedly read the story of the sightings in the papers, and on July 26th, over 200 calls came into the local police station from people saying they had seen Kohomo as well. It actually began with a man from Eureka who said he'd just been in East Peoria at a birthday party in Fond du Lac Park. Everyone at the party had seen some strange lights in the sky that were shining straight down in beams. They disappeared behind some trees, and all they could see was some sort of smoke trail. But after the UFO-like sighting, the calls flooded in about Kohomo. The calls ranged from mere sightings, someone saw a huge hairy white creature walking through their yard, to more aggressive, like the caller who said the creature was tearing a hole in their fence. According to the Peoria Star, one woman even reported that when she was driving on Coal Hollow Road, an 8-foot-tall hairy beast grabbed the back of her pickup and wouldn't let go. Finally, it did, and she was able to get away. The new witness accounts added more to Kohomo's description. It was covered in grayish-white hair, it had red lips, and human-like hands. It was some sort of mix between an ape and a Neanderthal. Its tracks only had 3 toes. The police were beyond skeptical, but they logged every single call. They also decided that from then on, anyone making a report would be asked to take a breathalyzer and a lie detector test. The locals, however, decided to do something about it. Over 100 armed residents formed a search party. They spread out along Coal Hollow Road and were doing fine until volunteer Carl Howell tripped and accidentally shot himself in the leg. Police had no choice but to force the party to disband at 7:45 p.m. In later reports, Howell insisted that he had not tripped and that the .22 caliber pistol had just gone off by itself.
Well, either way, he shot himself.
He did. According to the BFRO website, the Tazewell County Sheriff, James Donahue, was quoted in the Pekin Daily Times as saying that it was a very big deal because several people had indicated that they'd seen a monster. They looked for almost 2 weeks, but never found any evidence to substantiate any of the claims. However, they did not need any citizens' help, especially not armed citizens, and they were more than capable of searching on their own. But on the 28th, 3 days after the big search was called off, the police received another call, this time from a local woman who had been out berry picking. She said she was near the abandoned coal mine when she saw it, and it scared her so badly that she literally dropped everything, including her purse, and ran. That evening, 2 more calls came in. People speculated that the creature terrorizing Missouri and Pekin, Illinois, could be the same creature. But based on descriptions, Momo was covered in black hair, and distance, 165 miles, and the timing of the sightings, sometimes just hours apart, it couldn't possibly be. Eventually, the Kohomo sightings petered out, although not entirely. Every so often, people would swear they caught sight of him, but for the most part, the craze had ended. And then in 1991, Randy Emmert dropped a bombshell. He said a friend of his who lived on Coal Hollow Road had to walk the length of the road by himself after his shift at the Amoco gas station ended around midnight. This friend claimed he heard something one night, and Emmert, who didn't believe him whatsoever, thought it'd be funny to go along with the story and encouraged his friend to be a call-in on the WIRL radio show. Because of Emmert's encouragement, this friend called, and somehow Emmert's name got attached to the story. What started out as Emmert teasing his friend turned into something huge. But he said it was all nothing. It was all just a hoax. And when 200 of his neighbors started calling in to report sightings of the monster, the teenaged Emmert found it pretty funny. So what do you do when you know for certain that a creature's origin story was a lie? Do you just assume that the 200 people who claimed to encounter the creature afterwards were just caught up in mass hysteria? You have to see it to believe it, right? But maybe, if you believe it, you'll see it. Maybe. But the man who had a Bigfoot encounter in Tazewell County in 1957 certainly wasn't part of the craze. And as for the people who have seen a Bigfoot in Tazewell County in the last 2 decades, do they even know the Coal Hollow Road monster story? The 1957 encounter is pretty interesting because it involves both a sighting and lost time. According to the BFRO website, the witness was 13 years old at the time and was bird and rabbit hunting alone in the woods during the winter near the town of East Peoria. As he came to the top of a small hill near a creek, he saw an 8-foot-tall humanoid creature covered in black hair. The only facial feature he could see was its eyes. This creature had built some sort of hut or shelter out of sticks and branches right in the middle of a blackberry patch. It was picking berries, and when it heard the boy, it turned and looked at him. As soon as it saw him, the creature took off quickly and disappeared. Rattled, the next thing the witness remembers is being at his front door. He has no memory of turning around or of walking home. When he got inside, his mother was irate over how long he had been gone, between 3 and 4 hours. At the time of his report to the BFRO, the witness was 72, and he still could not explain how he had lost 3 hours of time. Was the Coal Hollow Road monster the same creature, just 20 years older? That could explain its hair turning from black to whitish gray. There are 2 more encounters that I thought were pretty interesting, and they're also more recent. One witness report on the BFRO took place on October 6, 2005, near Pekin. The witness said that a month earlier, they and their daughter had heard strange whistles that they couldn't explain. Then, a few nights prior to the 6th, they'd heard a strange growl outside their house. But on the 6th, the witness's brother was visiting their home and was camping in a tent in their yard. At some point in the night, he came inside and said he'd heard something walking around outside his tent. The night before, when he'd heard it, he assumed it was a deer, but this time it was different. The following morning, when they went back out to the tent, they discovered very large footprints circling it. And then on February 26, 2013, at the levee in East Peoria, The witness saw some sort of creature running on 2 feet, incredibly fast, across the top of the levee. This creature was described as covered in tan hair from head to toe. As it ran across the levee, it bent its knees as it went, but in a way that wasn't typically human. The witness estimated that it was going 30 miles per hour. Although the hair on its body was waving or moving with the momentum, its head didn't move at all. They only saw it for a few seconds before it was out of sight. The BFRO website has all of the 1972 Coal Hollow Road monster sightings listed as one massive sighting event and does not count all 200 as separate. Now, that being said, they've logged 304 sightings in the state, with the most recent happening in October 2024, right outside Peoria. And what's interesting about this one is that it was a truck driver who came across as very credible, actually, and he travels the same route 4 times a day to transport mail between the towns. While on Highway 24 at around 6 a.m., he saw an 8-foot-tall bipedal creature walking towards the side of the road, as if it intended to cross the highway. Its eyes were amber-colored. The trucker, named Gary Rutherford, was so sure of what he had seen that he asked his boss to review the dashcam footage. But because Rutherford didn't brake while he saw the creature, the dashcam didn't trigger and record. Apparently, they only turn on when they brake and when they turn on their turn signals.
Well, that's too bad that he didn't brake.
Yep. Still determined to find proof of what he'd seen, he stopped in the area the next morning to look for tracks. But unfortunately, the spot was covered in grass that was too short to show any footprints or impressions. Rutherford, though, was more than willing to have his name used in his report to the BFRO, which isn't always the case. Most witnesses choose to remain anonymous. Now, I mention that because Wes is going to be talking about truckers and the black dog. So I think I might jump in later and say a little bit more about this trucker's encounter with this Bigfoot creature. So, I don't know. Was the Coal Hollow Road monster just mass hysteria based on a teenager's joke? Or is there more to it? It could be both, right?
And we'll be back right after this quick break.
Hey, did you know? 35 million years ago, a group of monkeys sailed 900 miles on natural rafts from Africa to the coast of South America during a tropical storm. The prehistoric monkeys, known as parapithecids, left behind 4 fossilized teeth on a riverbank in Peru, some 2,400 miles inland, which is how we know they were there. The journey would have been treacherous, requiring the tiny primates to cling to their natural rafts made of floating vegetation. Yet somehow, they did it. Who'da thunk it? All right, we are back. And what are you going to be telling us about tonight?
Well, for my story tonight, I'm starting off telling everyone about a trucker and his eerie encounter with the black dog. It's 1 a.m. in the morning, and the 18-wheeler traveling along Route 491 is keeping a steady pace at 70 miles per hour. The driver is tired. He's been on the road for hours, and as the sound of the road beneath his tires thump out a constant rhythm and the headlights shine into the oppressive darkness, he thinks about two things: keeping his eyes on the road and getting to the next truck stop where he can pull in, park, and get some sleep. Suddenly, about 40 yards ahead, he sees a black shape in the road. He blinks his eyes and tries to clear his vision, but the black shape doesn't disappear. The second his brain registers that it's some sort of large black dog just sitting in the middle of the highway, he thinks of his kids back home and their golden retriever, Roxy. The dog isn't moving. It's sitting stock still, staring at him. And the driver swerves, bracing for the sickening impact. But the impact doesn't happen, and it only takes seconds for him to recover both himself and the trajectory of the truck. Luckily, there are no other vehicles, and he's able to stay safely on the road. Shaking himself and trying to regain his composure, wondering what the heck just happened, he starts to see something out of the corner of his eye. A black shadow has appeared, racing along the side of his truck, somehow keeping pace with him. It's the same black dog, and even though it doesn't seem possible, the canine is running along beside him, keeping up with his speed of 70 miles per hour. Thankfully, the exit sign for the truck stop appears ahead, and not understanding how he got there so quickly, the trucker slows down and takes the exit. All he can think is that the black dog was an omen. He needs to get some sleep before something bad happens. Long-haul truckers have told tales of the black dog for decades. A sort of black mass that separates itself from the darkness at the side of the road and lopes alongside the 18-wheelers for miles down the highway before careening in front of the driver. Like sailors, truckers have their own superstitions and myths. According to BloomTrucks.com, patting the dash and thanking your truck for a safe ride as soon as you arrive at your destination will ensure continuous good luck. Keeping loose change under your seat will also serve as a good luck charm. And of course, there are superstitions about avoiding bad luck as well. Crossing paths with a black cat is bad luck, to the point where a trucker might alter their route if they see one. Cemeteries hold all kinds of superstitions for truckers. You should hold your breath as you pass by one so you don't make the spirits jealous. And you should never park next to a cemetery, or you might end up picking up an unwanted hitchhiker. Another superstition is about railroad tracks, bridges, and tunnels. You should lift your feet off the floor when you cross railroad tracks, or while going over a bridge, or you will never find true love or get married.
Oh.
Kind of sad, huh?
That is sad.
But I hope there's not a lot of railroad tracks.
Or bridges.
As for tunnels, you should always honk your horn before entering one, out of respect for the lost souls that may be tied to the area. I can see where lifting your feet while crossing railroad tracks might be feasible, but I doubt it's something any trucker would do while crossing a bridge. And, quite frankly, honking your horn before entering a tunnel just seems like a good way to warn other drivers that you're coming. There are other superstitions tied to death, like one about not carrying $50 bills in your pocket. This one comes from the untimely death of NASCAR racer Joe Weatherly, who died in 1964. Allegedly, he had two $50 bills in his wallet during the race, and ever since then, it's believed to be bad luck for truckers to carry $50 bills while they're driving. And truckers have their fair share of ghost stories also, like the phantom hitchhiker and the menacing car with no driver. And then there's the black dog. Considered both a harbinger of death and a protector, the phantom black dog is not something any trucker wants to see. Traditionally, the black dog was commonly seen on Devil's Highway, otherwise known as U.S. Route 666, that runs through New Mexico, Colorado, and Utah. Even though it was renumbered as Route 491, the name stuck. But according to RoadDogCoffee.com, the Devil's Highway can be any stretch of road that's dangerous, known for accidents, or known for unexplained phenomena or hauntings. Over the years, however, the black dog has been seen on all kinds of highways, whether they were considered devil ones or not. In general, black dog sightings begin the same way, as the driver tools along. He or she starts to see a black shadow or figure darting across the left lane or even running alongside their 18-wheeler, sometimes keeping pace at 70 miles per hour. They can only tell that it's a large black dog when they catch it in their high beams just right. But sometimes the black dog might appear right in the middle of the road, its eyes glowing a ghostly white. Obviously, the trucker doesn't want to hit it, of course, so they swerve to avoid it. Sometimes just swerving causes an accident. Other times they avoid the dog, but when they look back, there isn't any sign of the dog ever having been there. Many truckers are more than willing to share their frightening encounters with a supernatural canine. All you have to do is scroll through various trucker forums or Reddit or Quora. I happened to see this one on Reddit, and it caught my attention. It was posted by Jarhead1964 back in 2011. He said, quote, "Got so tired once that I believe I started getting tunnel vision. It was at night, and I could see black shadows in my peripheral vision on the sides of the road, and they looked as if they were running alongside the truck. I'm guessing that it was the black dog or black dogs. Freaked me out. Stopped as soon as I could safely do so, and invented a parking spot at a Travel Centers of America." End quote. Other Reddit posts share stories about seeing a black dog as well, but it's not actually black. In one case, it was a Jack Russell Terrier with red spots. The tiny dog kept pace with the truck and winked at the driver before disappearing. Another driver said he saw a black dog, and it looked exactly like the dog he had as a child, right down to the white stripe down its belly. It darted out in front of his truck, and then ran alongside him at speeds no normal dog could run. Websites like Forward Thinking share some more general stories, like one night when a driver saw a black dog running alongside his truck. He kept speeding up, but the dog kept pace. At some point, it dawned on him that it couldn't possibly be a dog at the speed he was going. And when he had the courage to look for the dog again, it was gone. There are also tales about black dogs showing up when truckers have actually pulled over for the night. One driver described settling in for the night when he happened to notice a black dog sitting at the edge of the parking lot, staring at him. It creeped him out, but he closed his eyes and went to sleep. The next morning, when he looked for the dog prints in the dirt, he couldn't find any. So, what's happening? What are all these truckers seeing? In 100% of the posts, at least the 20 or 30 that I read, every one of them says that the black dog isn't real. They know this, and when they find themselves black dogging, they know that it's time to get off the road. So what is it if it's not real? There's actually a pretty simple explanation. The phenomenon of the black dog seems to come down to one thing: sleep deprivation. Now, it may seem pretty obvious, but your mind will do all kinds of things if you are continuously sleep deprived, including hallucinating. FreightRelocators.com, along with many other websites, are pretty clear about this, but they explain it in this way. Quote, "Sleep deprivation can cause the brain to malfunction. The longer you go without rest, the more likely you are to experience microsleeps, tiny bursts of sleep that last just a few seconds. But in those few seconds, you could drift into another lane miss a curve, or rear-end a slower vehicle. During extreme fatigue, your brain may also start to hallucinate. Now, this is where the black dog comes in. The combination of exhaustion, the monotony of the road, and the body's fight to stay awake can lead the brain to see things that just aren't there. It's as if the mind creates a distraction to jolt you back into alertness. Some see black shadows, others hear strange sounds. But for many truckers, the black dog is the final warning before they fall asleep completely. End quote. But why is it always a black dog? Well, black dogs, like black cats, have been part of our collective culture for centuries. They've been seen as evil or as a bad omen all over the world. So it's possible that these black dog encounters are part of a collective subconscious. Truckers know about it, so they see it. And when I say that they're part of our collective culture, I mean it literally. In African folklore, black dogs, like the African wild dog, are symbols of strength, unity, and guardians of the land. In some cases, they are emissaries of the spirit world and have mystical powers. In Chinese folklore, there's the story of Tian Gao, a spirit that can both be good and evil. In its evil form, Tian Gao took the form of a vengeful black dog that ate the moon, which helped explain a lunar eclipse. The story begins with a hero who was awarded an immortality pill. Before he could eat it, his wife did, hoping to maintain her youth. She became so light that she floated up to the moon. The hero's black dog raced into the wife's room and licked the remnants of the pill. The black dog grew so enormous that it could chase the wife up to the moon. The black dog, Tian Gao, swallowed the moon and the wife in one gulp.
That is an awesome way to explain a lunar eclipse.
It's quite a unique way.
I love it.
In South American folklore, there's a supernatural black dog with eyes that change from blue to red while he is in attack mode. This black dog either protects or tries to kill nighttime travelers. In its evil red-eyed form, the black dog has shaggy fur and the hooves of a goat. Sometimes it drags a heavy chain behind it. If you see it and try to talk to it, or if you turn your back on it, it will reduce you to insanity. But if you see the blue-eyed version, it will protect you from harm. It's interesting that in these cultures, the black dog can be harmful or helpful. And American truckers have said the same thing about the black dog. In some cases, it causes accidents, and even death, while in others, it serves as a warning for truckers to pull over and rest. In Europe, there are dozens of different black dog legends, all with different names. There's Hairy Jack, Padfoot, Striker, Churchyard Beast, Hateful Thing, Swooning Shadow, Boogie Beast, Guy Trash, Church Grim, and the Shug Monkey, and Black Shuck, which we did an episode about a while ago.
We did. I think it was episode 97.
I can't remember that far back. I have a hard time remembering yesterday.
Well, it's amazing. I could just pull that number out of my head like that.
Pretty amazing, dear.
But if you want to listen to the episode about the Shug Monkey and the Black Shuck, it was episode 97. Continue.
In European folklore, specifically England, the black dog is typically a hellhound with red or yellow glowing eyes connected to crossroads, execution grounds, ancient pathways, and thunderstorms. And just like other world cultures, the black dog can be good or evil. In southern Devon, in the town of Dartmoor, a squire and huntsman named Richard Cabell allegedly sold his soul to the devil. When he died in 1677, black hounds appeared at his burial chamber. It is said to this day that his spirit joins the Black Hounds on nightly hunts. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle was inspired by the legend and wrote the Sherlock Holmes novel, The Hounds of the Baskervilles. There's also the Black Dog of Newgate Prison, which has haunted the grounds for 400 years, ever since one death in 1596. A scholar was accused of witchcraft, and he was sent to Newgate Prison. But before he could be put on trial, the starving prisoners killed and ate him. After his gruesome death, the prisoners killed a guard and escaped. But they didn't get away without consequences. Each one of them was hunted down by a black dog that killed each and every one of them.
Wow, that sounds like a story that we could probably look into for a future episode.
It certainly does. And it could also explain why American truckers have been seeing a black dog. Because the stories of their existence as supernatural creatures are part of pretty much every culture in the world. But I noticed that the more posts that you read, it seems like it isn't always a black dog. In fact, in several of the Reddit posts that I looked at, truckers acknowledge that seeing the black dog has existed for decades. But they also claim to see other weird apparitions that aren't a black dog. Sometimes it's people that turn out to be trees, or moose or deer running alongside the truck. There was even one mention that I saw of a trucker seeing an entire herd of pink cows.
Well, that's something.
Well, they're the ones that give you strawberry milk.
Exactly.
But since black dog stories came first, their umbrella term for all these weird phenomena is black dogging.
Okay, so this might be a good spot. Can I jump in and talk about Gary Rutherford, the trucker that saw the Bigfoot from my story?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So you're saying that all the forums that you looked at, all of the truckers agree that black dogs are just a hallucination from sleep deprivation.
Yes, that seems to be the case.
Okay. And would you say that all of them were kind of like remorseful or like they didn't really want to admit that they were sleep deprived?
Yeah.
Okay. So here's where I think Gary Rutherford was not black dogging when he said he saw that Bigfoot. Because he went and told his boss about it. He asked to see the dash cam footage. He went back to look for tracks. And then he reported it to the BFRO. And you would think that if he was just black dogging, he would have realized that and not thought that he had actually seen something. So this is why I think he really did see a Bigfoot on the side of the road.
Right. And not just a figment of his imagination. I totally agree.
Yeah.
But as I had touched on before, truckers do seem to agree that the black dog is caused by sleep deprivation. But is it a combination of both of these things? Sleep deprivation and the collective subconsciousness that causes the hallucination to be specifically a black dog? I just find that strange.
I know. And you know what it reminds me of in a lot of ways is the Hat Man.
Yeah, there are some similarities to it.
You know, because
you're just nodding off.
Yeah, it's a sleep state or micro sleep as you were talking about before. And they're all collectively seeing the same thing, which is so similar to the Hat Man stories. And I'm sure people that experience that would argue to no end that the Hat Man was a real entity that they saw.
And he could very well be.
Right. So that's what I'm thinking is if something like Hat Man is actually in existence, how do we know the black dog isn't actually in existence?
I don't know. Like you were saying, it does sound like Hat Man. Perhaps the black dog is Hat Man's dog.
It could be.
Not to make light of it, but it'd be nice to know that he has somebody in the afterlife. Wouldn't it?
If you think the Hat Man is an afterlife kind of entity.
Well, We don't know.
Right.
Perhaps he just travels between the realms.
Yeah.
And he's not a ghostly figure at all. Perhaps he's interdimensional.
And the black dog could be too. Maybe we just don't understand it yet. We don't, so we're trying to explain it in terms that we understand.
Yeah.
Sleep deprivation and collective subconscious.
You have to be open-minded. You can't prove it or disprove it.
Exactly.
So therefore, it's real. And you know what I like is that truckers have some of the best stories. I mean, they're on the road for all hours of the day and night through all kinds of weather. And it seems like they have a greater chance of seeing something strange or out of the ordinary, anything from UFOs to cryptids to ghosts. I love trucker stories. And, those truckers, they keep the nation going.
Oh my gosh, yes.
We'd be nothing without them.
Yes.
So hats off to the truckers out there.
Yes. Thank you.
And if any of you truckers out there that are listening have seen a black dog, shoot us an email.
Yeah, let us know what you think about it. All right, everybody. If you would like to know more about the Coal Hollow Road Monster or the Black Dog, you can always check our sources in the show notes.
And there's a lot of them.
Well, yeah, there is this time.
And with that said, is there anything else you'd like to share with our listeners before we put this episode to bed tonight?
I don't think so.
All right. Well, join us again next week for an all-new episode of Where Our Minds Wander.
See you soon. Thank you for joining us. We look forward to traveling with you again to the places where our minds wander.
If you like what you heard, please take a moment and provide us with a 5-star rating and a comment on your favorite listening platform. It really helps us move up the list and become more visible on the podcast charts so new people can find us.
And thank you all for your continued support.
See you next week for an all-new episode.